You stand amid a throng of silk-clad nobles, their gazes riveted to the opulent chamber where Lucrezia Borgia, that enigmatic emblem of Renaissance cunning and unyielding resolve, prepares to bind her fate to Alfonso d'Este. This lavish affair transcends the mere joining of hands. It is a meticulously orchestrated gambit, forged to hush the echoes of old scandals and forge ironclad pacts for the morrow. Candle flames quiver like conspirators' whispers, etching shadows across the courtiers' faces, masks of reverence laced with the keen edge of judgment as they await a rite that will etch dynasties into eternity. The air hums with a charged hush, thick as the incense veils that shroud hidden motives. For in this shadowed hour, the nuptials shall not end at vows, but culminate in a consummation laid bare before scrutinizing eyes, each sigh and shiver passed for proofs of potency and promise. Before we unravel these veiled chronicles of endurance and enigma, if the concealed facets of bygone eras stir your soul, lend a like to this tale and subscribe for further unveilings of history's guarded whispers. And do share in the comments whence you tune in. I am endlessly moved that we, scattered across the globe, converge in this timeless pursuit, bridging epochs through our mutual thirst for the truths long entombed. In the pulsating core of Renaissance Rome, the year 1502 unfurls like a crimson banner in a tempest of intrigue. The eternal city, a maze of weathered stone alleys and soaring cupolas that pierce the heavens, throbs with murmurs and mounting expectancy. Today marks not a simple betrothal of hearts, but a pageant where the sinews of dominion, yearning, and heritage entwine in a Gordian knot. The breeze carries the heady perfume of smouldering frankincense and blooms plucked at dawn, undercut by the rhythmic thud of carriage wheels on cobble and the low susurrus of assembling multitudes. Rome, that perennial arena for titans of will and guile, inhales sharply as the Borgia clan readies to rivet yet another link in their chain of supremacy. The venue rivals the splendor of Olympus, vast halls swathed in sumptuous brocades and frescoes aglow with divine illusions, teeming with envoys, barons, and legates hailing from Italy's fractious realms and distant shores. The magnificence saturates the senses. Towering silver candelabras blaze with scores of tapers, bathing the veined marble expanses buffed to crystalline perfection in a honeyed luminescence. Liveried retainers glide like spectres, trays poised with rarities, sun-ripened citrons from Sicilian groves, haunches of venison spiced with saffron's golden fire, and confections that sparkle like captured stars. From an elevated alcove, lutanists and viols awaken a haunting refrain, a melodic veil tailored for a dawn as ritualistic as it is ruse-laden. At the heart of this gilded panorama presides the wedding of Lucrezia Borgia and Alfonso d'Este, ensnaring every sense in its web. Yet beneath the revelry's veneer lurks a friction sharp as a stiletto's kiss, presaging thunder. This bond springs not from affection's bloom or fate's caprice, but from the iron forge of sires and schemers. For weeks, the Vatican's labyrinthine passages and Ferrara's marbled salons have buzzed with conjecture and cabal, for this pact eclipses mere kinship. It is a pivotal gambit on Italy's vast chessboard of feuds and favours. Lucrezia, progeny of Pope Alexander VI, occupies the eye of this maelstrom. At 22, she radiates poise, her fine-boned visage encircled by ebony tresses that foil the ivory cascade of her brocaded robe. Her countenance holds a tranquil veil, yet her eyes, pools of fathomless night, swirl with tempests, eagerness shadowed by dread, fortified by an inner steel. Heir to a lineage synonymous with Christendom's most audacious scandals, she has shouldered expectation's yoke and scandal's lash since girlhood. Her prior wedlockings, laced with treachery and calamity, have scarred her deeply. Yet on this eve, she arrays herself not solely as consort, but as the Borgia's living sigil of perdurable sway. Facing her looms Alfonso d'Este, scion of Ferrara's ducal throne, a colossus of frame and bearing, his aura blending grave obligation with a flicker of veiled ardor. His bloodline, venerable as the Po's ancient bends, courses with the hauteur of Emilia's exalted caste. This espousal vows to buttress the Este's grip while thrusting Borgia tendrils northward, beyond Rome's 7 hills. Their glances entwine for a fleeting instant, a wordless covenant forged in the crucible of scripted fates, a nod to the parts they enact in this colossal charade. The Palazzo's confines crackle with a singular suspense. Attendees trade sidelong looks and stifled asides, prognosticating the ripples of this merger. To some, it heralds Alexander's masterstroke, a shrewd bulwark for the Holy See's teetering throne amid tempests of temporal might. To others, it invites scorn, for they pierce the splendor to spy the voracious drives that might kindle fresh vendettas. History's pallor drapes the revelers, for the Borgia's badge evokes guile and ferocity in equal measure, their stratagems passed in Italy's powder-keg courts. As rites progress, the pageant's pomp scarcely veils the seething undercurrents of command. The oratory gleams, festooned with murals of hallowed sufferers whose austere stares appear to arraign the rite below. The vaulted air weighs with wax's char and myrrh's balsamic sigh. The presiding cardinal intones litanies with grave cadence, his timbre swelling and ebbing through the resonant apse. The flock echoes in pious cadence, though myriad orbs fix upon the pair, assaying their metal and mien. Beyond the sacred portals, Rome itself throbs in sync with the hour's gravity. Bizarre throngs hush as traders crane toward the basilica's resonant chimes. Avenues brim with onlookers, famished for a peek at the cavalcade soon to serpentine through antiquity's veins. The Borgia-Est fusion is no cloistered vow but a broadcast proclamation of hegemony, etched for all beholders. Within the Palazzo, the assemblage braces for the banquet's unfoldment, the ceremony's apex, and a lavish pageant of opulence and entente. Banquet boards sag beneath gustatory treasures, fowls roasted to jeweled iridescence, fanned with citrus garlands, trenchers of brined cod and creamy curds from alpine meadows, vintages decanted from chaste ewers, gleaming like congealed garnet in the taper's caress. Nobles' banter and envoys' parleys saturate the ether, laced with chalice clinks and sporadic mirth's eruption, yet subcurrents royal. For Lucrezia, this dawn is an ordeal by fire. She traverses the throng with ethereal poise, conscious of each stare's probe and murmur's barb. Her clan's spectre precedes her hissings of venom, perfidy, and veiled vices that adhere like nocturnal shades. Still, she upholds a majesty that conceals the gales within. This espousal is no mere indenture. It is a tableau where each arch of brow and curve of lip bears freighted import. The geopolitical perils loom colossal. Alexander's reign, a blaze of splendor dimmed by calumny, hinges on bulwarks against Italy's fluxing tides. The Borgia's foes proliferate, their eminence as brittle as it is boundless. The destinuptials constitute a daring thrust, a lattice of fealty spanning the boot's length. As vespers gild the horizon, elongating umbras over Rome's hoary monoliths, the herb suspends breath for night's revelations. Lucrezia Borgia's union with Alfonso d'Este eclipses festivity. It is a tremor through authority's halls, moulding fates and recasting bonds. Behind the dazzle and dirges lurks a realm where ardor yields to artifice, each instant a feint in the ceaseless tilt of Quattrocento statecraft. Thus the proscenium rises, the dramatis personae arrayed, their arcs decreed by lineage and lust for legacy in Rome's pulsing nexus. Beneath deities and mortals' vigilant orbs, Lucrezia's fresh verse dawns not in romance's glow, but beneath succession's ponderous cowl. The city, that eternal alembic of mortal saga, bides the denouement where intimate and imperial spheres clash, and where the bridal dawn heralds merely the prologue to a chronicle resounding through annals. At this splendor's vortex stand Lucrezia Borgia and Alfonso d'Este, less bridal icons than avatars of labyrinthine cabal and burdened chronicle, gravid with aftermath. Their merger is a calibrated compact, tempered in authority's kiln rather than fondness's hearth. The Palazzo's vaults resound with muted colloquies on the perils at stake. Guests, though cloaked in civility's rictus, sense this bond's tendrils stretch far past the duo's veiled yearning. Lucrezia, the pontiff's issue, shoulders her kin's baleful renown with a fusion of elegance and wary fortitude. At 22, she knows scrutiny's blaze all too well. Her antecedent troths, each sundered amid obloquy and woe, have etched ineradicable stigmata upon her name, stigmata her sires yearn to efface or eclipse. Her inaugural wedlock to Giovanni Sforza unravelled in a maelstrom of calumny, impotence's charge and treason's spectre, a civic mortification reverberating through Italy's salons. The sequel, to Alfonso of Aragon, ignited in fervent pact, yet extinguished in savagery's maw his slaying, shrouded in enigma, a phantasm. Alfonso d'Este, Ferrara's ducal prospect, treads power's coils with native guile. Nurtured in a salon famed for erudition and finesse, he grasps this bond as statecraft's lever as much as spousal yoke. His carriage bespeaks equipoise. Alfonso's charge transcends bridal claim. It is to chart the Borgia riptides with prudence and avarice. Lucrezia's nuptial annals form a litany laced with innuendo and indictment, a pall that mantles today's pomp with unease. The rupture from Giovanni Sforza was Alexander's scalpel, excising an obsolete tie with merciless artistry. Her Aragon union flared with zealous accord, yet guttered in abrupt atrocity. His dispatch, imputed to the pontiff's fiat, illuminates the Borgia's feral arithmetic. For Lucrezia, the bereavement cut visceral, yet chronicles recast it as lineage's lethal ledger. This bond's repercussions undulate through aristocratic eddies, tinting views of her volition and valor. Now, as she girds for Alfonso d'Este, the compulsion to validate this league's soundness throbs. The Estes, schooled in Borgia infamy, and Lucrezia's train of tempests, exact pledges. This is no perfunctory in her antechamber. As Lucrezia readies for twilight's sacraments, she embodies restrained sovereignty. Handmaids orbit in hush, smoothing velvets and coiling her raven mane with deft reverence. Yet under the placid sheath, cogitations rage. She knows this bridal hour is less private pivot than civic charade, its perils eclipsing her own aspiration. The imperative to evince fealty, femininity, and aptitude as political spouse is a scourge she has weathered ere now, and must brave anew. Alfonso, in parallel vigil, ponders his mandates. As prospective duke, his remit blends sagacity with rights ratifying pacts. He concedes the witnessed bedding's exigency not solely for est dignitas, but for the polity's poise. Private confluence with public owner. The banquet's patrons, ostensibly immersed in toasts, chime, guffaws, and banalities, attuned to the rills beneath. Magnates and plenipotentiaries confab in undertones, assaying the merger's seismic shifts. The Borgia's repute for slyness and savagery draws frank dissection. Some laud the daring, others dread the snare. Lucrezia's niche in this mosaic is labyrinthine. Her bloom and allure brook no denial, yet her clan's calumnies loom larger. Still, a tacit vigor animates her, an acuity and tenacity discerned by intimates. She is no inert token in this troth, but a savant of the forces afoot, vowed to helm them with subtlety. Her allure and acumen already soften este courtiers, auguring her ascent from pawn to potentate. Thus this wedlock is an alchemist's retort, where self and state fuse. For Lucrezia and Alfonso, it exacts private pangs surrender to communal compulsion. The chronicle antecedent layers intricacy and mass, as clans scrutinize for bulwarks of bona fides and bond. Lucrezia's burdens, paramount, stem from inescapable umbrage. Her morrow pivots on incarnating the archetype of consort and confederate. As gloaming deepens, banquets' decorums yield to the hushed vigil of bedding. It is a crux gravid with portent, passed not by kin alone but by polity's stakeholders. The fiat to attest the league's soundness is sovereign, debasing a hallowed intimacy to civic mime. This decree, born of este zeal to stifle slanders and cement the accord, epitomizes the toll exacted on souls for state's altar. Lucrezia, laden with yesteryear's lashes and court's glare, nears this crux with stoic fusion of yield and yoke. She fathoms her emblem as concord and fortitude's avatar to attest the Borgia escutcheon weather's obloquy and ordeal. Alfonso steals for his quadrille of command, conceding private frailty to Devoir's blade. In this voltaic aura, Lucrezia Borgia and Alfonso d'Este's saga vaults past cloister and core into chronicle of cabal, lineage, and power's prism with self. Their league attests Quattrocento's flinty realpolitik, where pacts kindle in survival's forge, not passion's pyre. Yet amid this scaffold, the principals harbour aspirations, terrors, and avarices, threading a yarn as mortal as momentous. As crepuscule cloaks roam, the diurnal pomp transmutes to a rite at once sequestered and searingly civic. Lucrezia Borgia's bridal gloaming with Alfonso d'Este shuns domestic veiling. It unfolds as review for a coterie of magnates and mitred, the Palazzo's bastions, lately resonant with revel and roulade, now sentinel a deed steeped in strain, surmise, and shame. This arcane observance, spawned in Renaissance realpolitics more, mandates bedding's attestation to mute legitimacy's qualms. In a bloodline's aegis dictating sway, bequest, and bond, unions warrant brooks no sequestered credence but public probity. The Estes, cherry of Borgia obloquy, It chills as testament that carnal confluence bows to polity's lash, a bourse enacted beneath proba's glare. The trysting bower, denuded of frippery, its arras and damasks subdued in taper's throb, hosts retainers muted minuet, their visages averted in feigned forbearance, threading devoir and decorum's wire. Clerics, convened as neutral notaries, assume stances of pious severity, their aura gilding the carnal assay with piety's patina. The chamber's gravitas congeals, rent solely by attendees' muted susurrations. Lucrezia treads the threshold with calibrated gait, her wonted equipoise taut beneath ordeal's yoke. Her samite whispers like autumn leaves, a tenuous ward against the rawness impending. Her orbs, obsidian and oracular, glint with melded capitulation, contumacy and muted melancholy. She divines this crux shall be vivisected, ventilated, and vitiated by fate's puppeteers, yet inwardly steals a cognizance that perdurance and preeminence demand this abasement's embrace. Alfonso trails, trammelled by kin's fiat, he spurns not the rite's farce. Witnesses' intrusion profanes wedlock's holiness and self-sanctum. But in Quattrocento's fanged fray, Alfonso's regard locks Lucrezia's, a tacit telegraph of mutual martyrdom. The deed deploys with glacial geometry. The cadre clerics and elder peers mount unswerving sentry, their scrutiny a vice upon the twain as if corporeal cipher could distill from seclusion's sanctum. The bedding, chronicled as thrice reiterated, embodies lurid litany to banish ambiguity. Each cycle effaces intimacy's frontier, self to simulacrum, holiness to hegemony's haft. For Lucrezia, the bridal dais, wont for amorous accord, morphs to dais where her form tools political probity. The shame stings keen, yet she mantles it in majesty, veiling viscera's vortex. Her fortitude amid such witnesses roster, clerics chief, accretes right and societal mass. Their charge transcends attestation, it consecrates the carnal in divine and demotic gaze, meshing ethereal with earthly. This amalgam spotlights epoch's entangled kirk and crown. The observance's grotesquerie resides in privacy's profanation, humaneness's hijacking for state's ledger. Beyond the portal, court's vortices whirl with tattle and theorem. The civic bedding's sin qua non fuels fabulists forge. The Borgia cognomen, Scandal's sump, spawns fresh susurrations. Lucrezia's probity, spousal suasion, accords auguries. The rite, meant to mute mistrust, contrariwise she gauges this abasement as toll for throne and surety. Her adolescence and allure, erstwhile Achilles' heels, honed to hilts she hones with rising art. The bedding, intimacy, his enactment weds self-summons to state's semaphore of fealty. Kin and court's orbs compel not mere carnal cipher, but unspotted succession's surety. The triad's reprise signal this civic bedding's aftershocks span the instant. It broadcasts to foes and fractious that Borgia este entente endures, indissoluble, air-wrought. In legitimacy's age, where calumny capsizes crowns, the observance wards dissent's daggers. Yet it rings self's tariff, Lucrezia foremost, her corpus a contested colosseum of command and curb. This gloaming, etched by arcane incursion, the sequestered publicizes, volition vaults beneath clans, accords, subsistence's yoke. Lucrezia's attested bedding veers from ardor to act, fusion to fiat. Despite shame's sting, her stamina gleams. The observance, schemed to dwarf her to state's spindle, transmutes to forge, tempering tenacity. She weathers not for self alone, but for este enclave's edifice. The bridal gloaming, intrusions and immodity's idol, alchemizes to attestation of her helm in the fanged fray she treads. As Aurora's fingers fumble the casements and notaries recede, the bower's hush weighs with tacit truce. The deed dispatched, accords seal civic and unassailable. Yet subsurface, commands, selfs, subsistence's gyres persist. The nuptial gloaming, far from sequestered dawn, proclaims aloud, intimacy immolated on state's pyre, Lucrezia Borgia's stamina. The Borgia by name, breathed in awe and apprehension, across Renaissance Italy's mosaic, burdens with notoriety and nerve. Their hallmark of slyness, severity, and stratagem springs not from fable, but forged in deliberate, oft dire deeds that vault in Vatican's volute vaults and Italy's intrigues inns. The Borgias etched as intrigues archons, akin whose strides spotlighted, pacts prized yet perilous. Pope Alexander VI, Rodrigo Borgia nay, blueprints this dread renown's edifice, his sway, the pontiff's prospectus, exalt kin paramount, lattice Italy's limb and yonder with fealty's filigree. Wedlock wields as prime poniard, pacts procurement, turf's tether, cognomens cleanse in lineage's ledger. Lucrezia Borgia, conspicuous catapult, incarnates kin's cupidity and self-surrender. Her troths spawn not from heart's heat, but brain's blueprint, each accord a thrust in dominance's duel. The Sforza sunderance Alexander's lancet, lopping lapsed league with lethal law, impotence's imputation not sole solvent for split, but public pillory for quondam's son-in-law. This juncture, politic yet pernicious, daubed Lucrezia's fame with infamy's ink, a spectre shadowing sequels. Her Aragon accord aimed Naples' notch, yet nosedived to nadir and nebulosity. Alfonso's assassination, pontiff's proxy per many, spotlights, each troth threads Borgia blueprints brocade, ambition's arabesque laced with hazard. The Desta decree Lucrezia's latest lance in this levy. The Estes, Ferrara's feudists, exalted with vain and virtuosi's vault mutual meed. Estes glean papal prop, Borgia's burrow north, loyalty's lattice lared against Italy's lurches. Yet hazard haunts, Estes, Borgia blemish, exacting endurance's oath. In this skein, civic bedding accrues arcane aura, less liturgy than levy to mute. The Estes witness writ grotesque yet germane, vouchsafing union's uprightness and Lucrezia's spousal span. Bedding's bareness to review mirrors epoch's entanglement of self and state's sinew. The Borgias's troth tack typifies tactic. Bonds, states baubles, wielded. Lucrezia, oft limbed as dupe, duels too. Her noose and nimbleness navigate peril's straits, trust though by kin's kinks and cabals. Her leagues less ledgers than lists where pull parleys. Sforza scandal's spore spurned not Alexander's onward. It honed haste for Desti's wrecked. Polity's peril's pyramid, Borgia's brave bezants bent on breach, papal pale, frail to feud's flail and foes foray. The troth trumpet's tenacity, Borgia blazes banner amid blemish. In Este enclave, Lucrezia's ingress blends inquisitiveness, incredulity. The salon, savant of score, song, savants, contrasts Rome's rout and rot. Here Lucrezia refines, recasts beyond kin's umbrage, yet Borgia bylines blight bites, susurrations stick, probity's proof presses, kin's kinetics not Lucrezia's not, sons Cesare and Juan juggernauts, fealty's fringe frayed by feud. Lucrezia's niche as daughter, sibling in this tinder mandates mints of meek, machinate, metal, her trothstily less bliss than bide and brunt in kin's charisma, come cruelty crucible. The Estes civic right manifests kin's kinetics magnified, curbs claim, fealty's fiat, Lucrezia's lash to lane. Privacy's profanation paints Borgia self-state's splice, bedding's not bridal but banner of perdurance, pliancy. Thus Lucrezia Borgia's Desta decree vaults twain's troth to Renaissance real politics retort and kin's coil. It distills epoch's enigmas. Self-sovereignty off state's spoil. Love devoir subsistence's lines labyrinthine. Borgia blazes blemish and brunt backdrop Lucrezia's transmutation from dupe in death's duel to Ferrara's The bedding of Lucrezia Borgia's troth to Alfonso d'Este shuns mundane merger for machinate mime to muzzle mutter and mortar might's mesh. The fiat thrice to attest, not once, grotesque gauge by Este edict. Theatric testament to scour Lucrezia's virtue's veil and accords authenticity. This civic liturgy twists sequestered sacrament to staged soliloquy, perils polity not private, audience abbots and aristos, whose watchweds pull and pewter. The inaugural bedding's hush oppresses, splintered by Samite's sigh and breath's bridal beat. Witnesses, austere array of tonsured and titled, sentinel with visages vulcanized, orbs obdurate on crux carnal and cruel. Their throng tolls that in Quattrocento's fang, credence crumbles, proof plucks privacy's petals. The deed, custom cloaked in caress, here husks to husk, corporeal compact, as inaugural wanes, chamber's charge clings. The reprise's rigor reveals Este resolve to raise rumor that rends rapport. Each echo affirms. Troth true, tether tight, teeming with tomorrow's toll. Repose for Lucrezia, Trial transmutes to trespass profound on privacy's pale and pewter's pedestal. Corporeal critique, intimacy's immodesty, few fortify with such finesse. Yet she shoulders with stamina, steeled in kin's kiln of cupidity and calumny. The right refines not rout but rally, endurance's emblem, self's subtle scorn amid severest stricture. Each loop Lucrezia's levy limbs deeper, shame's shard to shield's shard. Alfonso's ambit aches akin. As Ferrara's fifes forecast, devoir de mans accords encore not by kill but Kim's quest. Triads toll toasts, virility's vaunt and vows vigor, mime that mantles husband-heir's helm. Yet duty's damask veils vanity's void and right's rigor, cognizance that seclusion's sanctum state's stiletto. Witnesses wield writ in this weird. Their stance stamps state summons as spousal surety. Clerics, soul shepherds, snare in spectacle smudging sacred and secular's seam. Their vows vigilant vain, Kirk's clout with crown's coil in Italy's intrigue. Faith's cloister cozened to polity's play. The triads tally trope-laden, law's litany and ledger's lock. In calumny's climb that crowns crumble, annul's arrow, such sifts, sine qua non. No nebulosity nestles, impotence's ink or nonage's nag, quelled by estes exact. Civic rights resonance rebounds, sans bowers bound. Peers and proxies, law's legate or law's law, speculate on sequelae. Borgia blazes bog renewed in buzz. Yet paradox. Right raises rankest rumour with rubric's rod. Incontrovertible. Hazards hurl, spectacle's shame, state's spur, vigilance's vaunt, and Borgia's brawn. Peril's price, polity's purse. For Lucrezia, crux catalyses cadence. Triad's trespasses, right spotlights noble daughter's rigours, corpus clan's colosseum for cupidity's crusade. Yet Lucrezia's levy and lustre amid lens limn Leviathan's lung, to till Este's turf with trust's tiller. Alfonso's quadrant quests kin's quest, husband's helm and house's hope, enactment emblem of manhood's muster and fealty's flame, self and succession's semaphore that splice seals sans siege. Bridal gloaming's thrice-thronged thrall distills, reviews toll that Pudor's pale state's pyre, troth heart's haven, state's stratagem, proofs plaudit performance's prime. Yet grim proscenium's gloam, Lucrezia's gleam endures. Shame's shackle shatters not, but shears. Stamina's smithy for strife sequels. Attested reprise not grotesque guise but gateway's guild to might's meed. Crux where self states, Lucrezia Borgia, scribes not dupes. Thus thrice witnessed, throng observed, right rears, as intimacy polities inexorable impinge in Italy's intrigue. Spectacles sway, accords assay, self-smelter, staging Lucrezia Borgia's labyrinthine lease in Ferrara. In the sequent dawns and moons post-civic crux, Lucrezia Borgia slew Scandal's shroud, ascending as Este Enclave's empress. Wedding gloaming's galls, memories mordant, morph from shame's shackle to scaffold's youthful Duchess, erstwhile kin's dupe, accrues acclaim as cunning's queen. Ferrara's salon, suave with symposiums, scores splendor, polity's pulse, proffers Lucrezia panorama poles upon. Midst erudite elect and savant synod, she sows seeds of sway and self. Her suasion, sparkle, scholarship seduce salon and envoy, transmuting tattle's toxin to tribute's tone. Lucrezia transcends pontiff. Transfiguration tolls not swift nor sans strife. Kin's umbrage's umbra lingers, your troth's taints factions. She summons symposiums as intellect's incubus, beckoning versifiers, visionaries, virtuosi to her aegis. These conclaves cull culture as cabal's cradle, clans' cachets claim in court's cascade. Lucrezia's aegis arcs to opus that exalt Este escutcheon, ratify her rampart's rectitude. These strokes shift saga from obloquy to opulence, yoking to quattrocentos, brocades blaze, canvases cant, cantatas cascade, duchess's decree, dwarf not display but decree. She husbands pacts with peers and proxies, her papal pivot poised twixt tiara's talk and ducal diadem. Epistles evince dame deep in diplomacy's deeps, attuned to equipoise's edge for damehood dovetails Lucrezia's dawn and dominion. Issues issuance not norm's nod but polity's pivot, Este's eternal and accords offspring oracle the merger's might, corporeal compact of clans' confluence. Yet pomps undergird, Lucrezia wrestles yours yokes, troth's thorns, treason's tear, civic cruxes cut. Intimacy erstwhile state's stiletto reclaims as realm's regalia, narrative's nab, court's contour. This twain of triumph and trial textures Lucrezia's tapestry, dame by Quattrocento's quag, yet quelling through quill and quest. Her vault from lens-lashed bride to sway's scepter attests adaptability's arc and fortitude's fire. Este enclave, eyeing her eminent, her aegis allures archons of art and axiom, burnishing Ferrara's blaze as Quattrocento's key. Symposiums seed ideas inferno and pacts forge in converse's crucible and canvas's cant. Through these, Lucrezia, Alfonso d'Este augments this axis. Ere then helm, he hallows Lucrezia's hurdles, hardening her heft. In tand, Lucrezia's renown's recast resonates realm-wide. Obloquy's oriflamme fades to finesse's fanfare. Duchess dawns dame of Quattrocento. Versed, vivacious, polity's pulse. Her chronicle contests damehood's. Lucrezia's Ferrara foray thus throbs past pale, tinting genders, mights, self's spectrum in Renaissance's rubric. In Ferrara's forge, Lucrezia Borgia's stamina crystallizes to colossus. Wedding gloaming's galls and yours yonder define not. They dawn the pyre. She vaults not dupe of doom, but Duchess donning dignitas, dominion's dart, city's cultural, and cabal's cadence. Her arc from obloquy to overlord emblemizes self's stamina and state savvy in Italy's intrigue. Through symposium and sponsorship, diplomacy's deep and dam's devoir, Lucrezia laps limits birth and bygone bind. Her reinventions rigor rites turning in Este enclave. Lucrezia's transmutation attests stamina's, newses, grace's grip in perils and prospects pale. In Ferrara's finesse, Lucrezia Borgia's ascent allies culture's cull to polity's ploy. Duchess divines might in Italy's intrigue wields not sole sword or seed, but suasion's silk, axiom's arc, beauty's bind. Her symposiums, sumptuous synods of versemen, visionaries, artists, arbiters, meld culture's crucible to polity's pulse, proffering podium to recast renown and rivet rule. Symposiums surpass salon. Orchestrated opus letting Lucrezia project polish and pull. Within, colloquy cascades. Ontology's onset, Duchess, deices dowager, hosts and hones, wit's whip and wisdom's ward wooing wonder, pacting in parlance. Here yours yammer yields to Quattrocento, opus ordained exalt Este's eld, her yarn yoked to hearth's heraldry. Fresco's fire, marble's muse, madrigal's maze, these not Narcissus's nod but Noos's net, signal to suitor and scourge that station stands steadfast. Through culture's cull, Lucrezia lances polity's labyrinth, Ferrara's fray nexus of nexus, pacts pivot and perils, symposiums and savants summons, spawn fealty's filigree, laird sans latch, envoys and earls, duchess's domain drawn. This cultural confluence couples Lucrezia's diplomatic deeps. Epistles and embassies evince epoch's edge past, Italy's flux's fulcrum fathomed. Script's subtleties skein and sagacity's shaft show dame. Through these, Lucrezia leaps damehood's ledge, polity's prime in margin's mire. Symposiums stage gender's gambit to curating court's cant and canvas. She scribes sermon and slant, court's cultural and cabal's course. This velvet vice vaults gender's jive and kin's knot, frailty to fort's flint. Duchess's Borgia blazes blemish mandates makeover not mere for self but stance in strange skein. Yoking Quattrocento's questing and grace's glyph, she sunders yours yoke, projecting probity's pall and pewter's poise. This self's recast reflects in dam's devoir and kin's keep. Lucrezia's issue icons not sole succession but Borgia Este's braid. Upbringing's urn, and erudition's ember infuse salon values vein. Through maternal mantle, she moors polity's project, perjurance to progeny. Yet polishes under, Lucrezia limbs lot's lability. Court cabal's cauldron, pacts precarious as prized, favors fetch demands wake and warp. Culture's cull doubles dart, exalt yet envy, suspect snare, risks reef rose, charms chain, nooses net, polity's ploy. Lucrezia's vault from kin's knot to court's colossus, patron's prime and polity's pulse, emblemizes Renaissance's reach. Her lease limbs culture polity's coil, might's muster through art's aegis and axiom's assembly. Thus she scribes not self's saga soul, but Ferrara's flowering bequest beyond youth's yoke. Symposiums, sagas, luring era's luminaries, Tasso's trope, Dossi's daub under her umbra, opus orbed in nurtured nimbus. Through these, Lucrezia lattices layered Ferrara's prestige and pull. Court's cant as Quattrocento's quay owes her oracle and obstinacy. Moreover, Lucrezia's diplomatic deeps delve Ferrara's fringe. Epistles evince Europe's entente, Italy's intrigues impinge, positioning pivot in pacts pale. Culture's courier complements cabal's cant, arts as argot of awe and allure. This hole's heft hallmarks her helm. Culture polity's braid under Lucrezia's baton reshapes Ferrara's face. Court Quattrocento's quest's key, where humanism's heat and innovation's inferno flare with state's stratagem. Lucrezia's lobe in this leap contests dame's domain's dogma, sways wield through wit's ward, tastes talk, aegis's arc as birth's brunt or blade's bite. In this vibrant vortex, Lucrezia Borgia redrafts, not yarn's yarn but dame's domain in Renaissance. Symposium sways smelter where culture cabals cudgel and self-sinew. Through these thrusts, she hews history's hall in Ferrara's fray and Italy's intrigue, arts, embassages, might smell defining her dawn. As annals unspool in Ferrara's filigreed fastness, Lucrezia Borgia's lease looms tapestry of triumph and trial. Public persona powers pas de deux with peril's pall. Duchess, erstwhile obloquy's oracle, evolves emblem of station's scourge and splendor. Grand's undergird, Dame Duel's self-strife and state summons. She damsel, spouse, art's aegis, polity's pivot, all arcs assaying court's coil and clime's crush. Issue icons, succession's surety, glee yet glares goad. Each Genesis gala not self-solstice but polity's pulse, Borgia Este's braids bulwark. Expectation's edifice weighs, legacy lashed to lineage's levy and lines lock. Yet damhood dawns fulfillment's fire, and fortitude's forge. Lucrezia lavishes law and levy on offspring, humanism's heat their hall. Through them, she hurls heft to horizon, next nexus normed to her noon's nerve and nerve. Maternal mantle melds heart's heat and hegemony's haft. Triumphs despite, Lucrezia's lease lacks not lash. Yours, troth's thorn, treason's tear, civic crux's cut subsurface shape, self's slant and stride. Borgia blazes byline, softened yet stubborn, spawns scourge's spur. Rivals rift and court's canker clutch chance to curb, might's mire as craved as crumb. Pacts pale precarious, loyalty's leaf in wind's whim. Alfonso d'Este, yoke's yoke, quests quandaries quag with tandem's tact and tenacity. Their axis, machinates mold, matures metals mesh, reverences rind and resolves root. Yet bond's brunt tests, throne's thorn, air's heft, Borgia umbrage's umbra. Amid these, Lucrezia's art's aegis anchors, awe, court cant's crucible, innovation's inferno, luminaries lured whose lore lifts Ferrara's flame, cultural cull, couples polity's ploy, status's suture and self-script, this dyad damehood's diadem, yet public prowess and private pangs paradox paints, visibility's vaunt, vulnerability's vice, critique's claw, self's sanctum, erstwhile warded, wears for whisper and wet, Yornow's yoke, kin's keep and self-surge, craft's crux of dame dueling domain's demand, Lucrezia's levy lashed by languor and loss, childbed's chill and clime's frailty forge frequent fray, offspring's orison or kin's knell knife keen, life's lability and legacy's lilt limbed, tragedy's toll, cloistered yet court's cant, cadence courts and clan's coil, Duchess duels devoir's dusk too, Borgia blazes byline for guile and grit glooms, Lucrezia lanced twixt birth's bond and bower's brunt. These fealties fence finesse's fulcrum, discretion's dart, self-splice sundered. Yours yoke's yield varies, legacy's labyrinth. Through Ferrara's foray, Lucrezia limbs law's lodestar, dignitas's diadem, naus's nexus, grace's glyph countering youth's yarns lurid, art's aegis arcs to arms and avowal, renown's rampart and root's rivet, benevolence's bloom both heart's heat and heft's haft. Bridal dais, erstwhile shame's stage, shears to sway's seat, intimacy incarnate on self-summons, pacts, poised passion, and polity's pale, self-states in legacy's loom and court's cant, as lease lengthens, crazier chronicle Quattrocento's dame's diptych, public powers pale and private perils prick, genders jive and kins knot every egress and edge. Endurances, warps, wields within these weft mark marvels metal and mass. Legacy looms not limpid nor lissom. Tapestry's toil of sponsorship splendor, cabal's cant, self-scourge, stamina's shaft. Lucrezia Borgia's Ferrara foray attests mights, selfs, subsistence's skein, in strife's skein. Chronicle coils Italy's intrigues impinge, kin's cupidity, and self-surge with history's haft and human's hush. Lucrezia's journey jars from obloquy's oracle to overlord's oracle, grace's glyph and nooses nexus. Bequest-born brunt and brunt she bore, indelible in Ferrara's fastness and Quattrocento's quill. Time's tide tempers Lucrezia Borgia's byline from dupe's dirge in dynasty's duel to sway's savant and nuance's nexus. Saga erst obloquy's oracle, pontiff's progeny soul, evolves endurance's emblem, embassage's edge, culture's cull. Lease-laced Italy's court's coil and kin's umbrage attests dame's devoir to recast and reclaim amid confines clutch and curtails cant. Lucrezia's youth's yoke, Sforza sunderance's suzeraus, Aragon's atrocities aftermath, Deste gloaming's grotesquerie yawed to yoke forever, yet resolves rigor and reason's rod, volti these voids to vigor's vein. Humiliations heft not halt, but hearth her hewn anew. In Ferrara's finesse, Lucrezia limbs law transcending youth's yoke, art's aegis from fresco's fire to verseman's vault, intellect's incubus recrafts, not self-script but city's cant. Court Quattrocento's quest's key, art and embassages entwine exalt Ferrara's flame and her footing. Cultural heft deliberate's dart, might and mantle through beauty's bind and brain's brunt, not blades bite alone. Polity's pivot, Lucrezia parlays and parlays Italy's intrigues impinge with suasion's silk and grace's glyph. Epistles evince epoch's edge, papal pull, and ducal diadem's dovetail. Negotiation's nexus and pact's ploy carve dame's domain in margin's mire. Yet Lucrezia's bequest bears brunt's braid. Borgia byline binds, history's heft as guile's glyph and grit as grace's. Self-splice as pontiff's progeny and Ferrara's forecast infuses intricacy and strain. Yours yokes yield yoke to chance's chain she vaults, lineage's lever else eluding. Self's tariff public life's pale profound. Court coils crush, dam's devoir, pacts press poise with pewter's prick beneath. Troths tactical yet texture self-script, losses lash, endurance's ember, transmutation's toil. Civic crux with dest, shame's shard profound, reclaims as survival's sigil not subjugation's scourge. In Ferrara, aegis arcs past aesthete's aura, identity's imp and might's muster. Savants and seers, she summons contribute culture's cascade redrafting city's status and self-seat. Symposiums, intellect's inferno and polity's parley. Gender's gyve gently gauged and gamed. Through culture, sway rivals man's muster, perdurance's poise and polishes prime. Duchess's damhood diadems bequest too. Alfonso d'Este's issue not sole succession's surety but mergers mortal. Clans confluence corporeal. Upbringing's urn and union's urge, extend sway to sequels, impacts impinge perduring. Maternal mantle meshes heart's heat and hegemony's haft, personal plot, and polity's prime. Over orbit, obloquy's oriflamme and fabulist's fire fade, balanced bard's bequest of lease and law. Chroniclers concede stamina's shaft, polity's poise, culture's cull's crux. She vaults Quattrocento's crux's colossus, dame dueling genders, mights, kins not with nouse's nexus. Lucrezia Borgia's chronicle attests endurance's agency's arc in self-state's skein. Lease limbs, intimate immolation, civic crux, scandal's scourge, treason's tear reframed fortitude's forge and probity's prime. She vaults dupe's dirge to Duchess donning destiny's diadem, history's heft indelible. Bequest broods, not cabal's cant or obloquy's oracle, but culture's cascade and embassage's edge fostered. Ferrara's fastness, aegis enriched, monuments, vision's vaunt, and tenacity's toil. Through glyph and script, pacts plied, Lucrezia redrafts dame's domain in Italy's intrigue, climbs constraint challenged, sequel's scope swelled. Reflecting Lucrezia Borgia's lease, saga vaults simple's shroud. Dame of diptych, dupe and duke, obloquy and oracle, yokes yield and yields yoke. Arc from shame's shard public to patron's prime unveils, survival's suasion and sways script defining renaissance. Chronicle of Volti where self states, endurance etches through history's haft. Lucrezia Borgia's yarn yearns, rethink mites, genders, bequests braid. Challenges fabulist's fire to fathom legend's lung. Lease law's lodestar that constrained climb yields agency's arc and dignitas's dawn. Bequests braid not bound but bravery's, Naus's braid. In Ferrara's forays faint and annals amber, Lucrezia's bequest blazes, dames dauntless who vault to shame to stamina, obloquy to overlord's oracle.